Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, we're going to be talking about Winter Classics and which NHL teams deserve to be in one. Now the situation with outdoor games is sometimes pretty frustrating. As you can tell, of course, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Boston, these successful teams really do get the most amount of outdoor games, and pretty much by far. You see Chicago dominating, and of course, they're getting another outdoor game this next season. And of course, me included and a lot of other people think that obviously the oversaturation of having Chicago in an outdoor game, having all these other teams in the games that have already been there like 4 other times, it's getting towards the, over excessive age. And we have a lot of teams that haven't even had one, and we have a lot of teams that probably deserve to have a lot more, only having like 1 or 2 games that they don't really deserve to have more. And the oversaturation with some of these teams is probably the biggest problem. Yes, does having Chicago in there every game make them money? It does make them money, but I think it would be in their best interest to include other teams, and of course, here's where the discussion comes. There's a total of 8 NHL teams that have not played in any outdoor games. Of course, the outdoor games includes the Heritage Classic, the 100th anniversary game between Montreal and Ottawa, the Stadium Series, the Winter Classic. It includes all of those things. So there's 8 teams that have not been in any of them. You got the Vegas Golden Knights, who just came into the league. That's pretty obvious. You got the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Nashville Predators, the Dallas Stars, the Carolina Hurricanes, Arizona Coyotes, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Florida Panthers, all of which have never played in an outdoor game. So, of course, let's look at the other teams that have actually played games and see where they rank. So, we're going to look at all NHL teams that have played in an outdoor game and see how many of them they've played in. We're going to be going down in order, and we'll start with Chicago, who, of course, has 6 games. That's the big problem here, the oversaturation of the Chicago Blackhawks is what a lot of people are complaining about. They lead the NHL in the most outdoor games played with 6. You got Pittsburgh Penguins with 5, which is understandable as well as Chicago. They're a successful team. Why not have them out there? There's Detroit Red Wings, who are a classic team. They've been in a lot of historic ones as well. You got Montreal Canadiens, who have also been in the same situation. Philadelphia Flyers, who have played with Pittsburgh, it seems like, every other year, and they're going to do it again this next season. You got the Washington Capitals, who are at 3, New York Rangers, who are at 3, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are at 3, the Boston Bruins, who are at 3, and it goes down to 2. Yeah, the Los Angeles Kings at 2, the Buffalo Sabres at 2, the Ottawa Senators at 2, and then it goes down to 1 for quite a few teams. Yeah, Minnesota at 1, Colorado at 1, Vancouver at 1, Calgary at 1, New York Islanders at 1, the Winnipeg Jets at 1, the Anaheim Ducks at 1, the St. Louis Blues at 1, the San Jose Sharks at 1, and last but not least, the New Jersey Devils at 1. And as you can tell, there's a lot of teams that have only played 1 outdoor game that definitely deserve more. I mean, Minnesota only having 1 outdoor game is pretty much a travesty. And in my opinion, not the biggest problem with these outdoor games is not because they happen, twice a year. I think it's fine that they happen that much. It brings a lot of excitement. And honestly, my favorite part is seeing the jerseys that they come up with. But the thing that suggests the most problems to me is having the Blackhawks, it seems like, in every single game, having the Penguins in every single game. If we can have more diversity between the teams, bring some more teams in, that'll be definitely welcome. But this next season isn't looking good. It's the Chicago Blackhawks for the Boston Bruins, both of which are over 3 games, and the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Philadelphia Flyers, who, of course, are up there in the leaderboard as well. And of course, we don't have any other ones planned after 2019, so we'll see what happens there. But in the next season, we're not getting too much different when it comes to teams. And I think that Chicago missing the playoffs this past season was a big wake-up call to the NHL and both advertising them. There was a lot less advertising for the Chicago Blackhawks than there were in past years, and honestly, as a Stars fan, that's pretty good to see. But I feel like if they keep missing the playoffs, if they continue on their, kind of bad streak here after making the playoffs for, 10 years, if they keep missing the playoffs, they'll definitely appear less in outdoor games, they'll definitely appear less in advertising, just because they're a lesser team. The NHL seems like there's a pattern. They want to put successful teams out there rather than bad teams, and having the Chicago Blackhawks out there and the Pittsburgh Penguins out there every single game, it makes sense in that respect. But if you want to have different teams, if you want to have some diversity, you gotta put some different teams in there in NHL. So while we look at the teams that have not played in any outdoor games, it's fun to think of situational games that we could put them in, and a lot of these teams have good rivals too. First up, I have the Dallas Stars versus the Minnesota Wild, and to me, as a Dallas Stars fan, I might be a little bit biased here, but that is literally free money for the NHL. Dallas Stars versus the original, North Stars technically. And if the Wild don't have some sort of North Stars feel to them, that would be a travesty as well. But I feel like this could be a fair creative game, something that would really help. I mean, it would probably have to be in Minnesota, but the Dallas Stars returning to Minnesota and having this special event for them returning, something like that where it's kind of a rivalry rivalry. They bring back what happened. Maybe maybe they have like a North Stars versus the original Stars back when the Dallas had their first season. Bring something, maybe it's like a kind of throwback game or like another Heritage Classic, something like that. But I feel like that has a ton of potential and could totally work. Next, we have the Vegas Golden Knights versus the San Jose Sharks. And with Vegas, of course, they already have quite a few rivals, being only playing one season. And with Vegas, of course, they already got the success going to the Stanley Cup Final. They're going to get a outdoor game sooner or later. It's going to happen. It's pretty much a confirmed thing after they've had that success. So I think that's going to happen eventually. It might even happen in 2020. As early as that, I think that would be really interesting to see. I think that they're going to face San Jose because they already seem to have that rivalry already. Either San Jose or Los Angeles, I think, would work very well. But with Vegas, playing San Jose this past season and having it as a pretty good series, I think would definitely work well. With Vegas versus San Jose, of course, it's not going to really be a winter classic per se, because either or doesn't really snow. I think it would be more of a stadium series kind of thing, like they had the Ducks versus the Los Angeles Kings. Next, I have the Nashville Predators, and of course, they got quite a few rivals as well, being the last couple of years of being a pretty great team. And I have the Nashville Predators versus the Winnipeg Jets, and for me, of course, this would have to be in Winnipeg. Nashville isn't really a snowy city, so I don't know if it would quite work there, but if you go to Winnipeg, as an instant, creative success. With Winnipeg, of course, they faced off in the second round this past season, with Winnipeg being the Nashville Predators in a not upset, but it was a pretty devastating blow for Nashville. So I think in a couple of years, this rivalry will continue to grow, continue to flourish, and by the time this could actually happen, like 2020, 2021, I feel like this would be a great rivalry, and a stadium series for these two teams would be fantastic, as they're both going to be fantastic for the next few years. Next, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it's kind of surprising that they haven't had a winter classic or an outdoor game or whatever in the last few years. Of course, they've been a really successful team. They've already won the Stanley Cup in 2004, and they've already shown that they can have that success, so I'm kind of surprised that they haven't had something along the lines of an outdoor game with somebody else and being the away team yet. I feel like it's bound to happen, and Tampa Bay continues success. I feel like it's going to happen eventually. I feel like they'll be going against the Toronto Maple Leafs, maybe somewhere in Ontario, have something like that. I feel like that would be a good game. It would be a brilliant offensive game. It would just be crazy, but it would be a really exciting game to watch. Two teams that are looking to be fantastic for the future. The last one I'm going to go into full detail is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They haven't had an outdoor game or anything, which is, again, kind of surprising. But I have them against the Washington Capitals because, of course, Columbus Blue Jackets, they have that military feel. I feel like it definitely work well against the Washington Capitals, who, of course, are in the nation's capital. So I feel like that would work very, very well. These two teams, having that American feel to them would definitely work in some sort of style. It would be fantastic to see what they could do with it, the just spectacle that they do. They already did it with Washington versus Toronto, had that whole, I think it was in the, I can't remember, I think it was in like a Marine field or something like that, but it was an Army feel, what they had for that game, and I feel like they could do even more for a Columbus versus Washington game, and I think it just fits too perfectly for these two teams to face each other. Now, next three I'm going to just kind of go over a little bit quickly. I have Carolina versus New Jersey. I feel like those two teams have something a little bit there, but New Jersey hasn't been too much, so I feel like having them in a game would definitely work well. Florida Panthers versus the Detroit Red Wings. I'm pretty sure they had a little bit of a rivalry at the beginning of Florida's, existence, so I feel like it could work out. Florida, of course, you don't have too much. Maybe they do a Florida versus Tampa game, but I feel like that could work out. And then last but not least, for the Arizona Coyotes, of course, it's not really that easy to put Arizona Coyotes in a stadium series game. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but the Arizona Coyotes probably against a Californian team would work out well, and I have them against the Anaheim Ducks. And while, of course, I put scenarios up for the Arizona team for Florida, I don't know if those two teams will be in anything anytime soon, but I feel like having Tampa in a stadium series game, having Vegas in an outdoor game, having Dallas in an outdoor game, having Nashville in an outdoor game, these teams are going to get it sooner or later, and I think that is going to be time in a few years. These teams are good, and I feel like that's the biggest thing for the NHL right now. If they have some continued success, maybe if Tampa wins the Cup or something like that, I feel like they're just bound to get one, and I feel like they could definitely be a away team for a team in the northern region so they can get snow if that's really the biggest problem there. But again, still kind of surprising that Nashville hasn't had an outdoor game, that Tampa hasn't had an outdoor game yet. Some of these teams would really work well, but the NHL hasn't pulled the trigger yet. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in 2020, how that works out. I think that's the lockout year if it were to happen, so that's going to be interesting, but I feel like there's limitless potential for that, and for some of these teams, it's going to happen eventually, and I think it will happen. Of course, if the NHL stops putting teams like Chicago ahead of them, I feel like Tampa Bay has a good chance, Nashville has a good chance, Vegas is going to happen. It's going to happen eventually, and I feel like these teams, it's just a matter of time. these teams have a lot of potential on what teams they could face, you know, the spectacles that they could bring. I feel like some of these teams have great potential that the NHL is kind of missing out right now, and I feel like they could definitely bring a lot. Having Tampa Bay would be a real refresher. Having Vegas would be amazing. Some of these teams would really work out well, and I solely believe that the NHL is kind of missing out by not putting any of these teams in. And of course, having Chicago in for the 12,000th time is going to get old eventually, and I feel like if the numbers keep going down, you know, they are going down a little bit. With every outdoor game, they're kind of going down a little bit. So I feel like if they keep going down, they keep having Chicago in the games, and they keep, you know, oversaturating it, I think it'll run out eventually. They think the NHL would be smart to get some new teams in eventually. And all in all, I think that having Chicago in every single game, it seems like, is not the smartest move. And I feel like diversifying it a little bit, you know, bringing in some new teams that haven't made it before, or bringing in some teams that haven't had a lot of them before, would really work out well. You know, maybe you have your Chicago versus Pittsburgh, you know, maybe have one of those in like 2 years. But have some diversity. Have some teams like Nashville going in. Have some teams like Vegas getting in. Have some diversity. I feel like that's in the NHL's best interest. But to me, I always like outdoor games. I always like watching them, even though they're not the best setup. You know, some of the times the camera angles are not that great. I love the spectacle. I love the feel of outdoor games, and I feel like having some new teams in there will bring a lot more energy than what they've been having the last couple of years. Of course, whether it be Nashville, Vegas, Tampa, Dallas, I want some new teams in here. I want some teams that I haven't seen before in. I just want some new teams playing. That's really all I ask. So that's been it for today, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe. Tell me below what you think of the outdoor games. Which teams do you want to see in? What new teams do you want to see in? And how do you think they work out? I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.